Hello, everybody. We have a special guest with us today, Mark Houck, who you may remember made headlines a while back when the U.S. Department of Justice, Injustice, kicked down his door, held the family at gunpoint, just a horrible thing. Actually was finally vindicated in all of that. Mark, welcome for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael. Always good to be with you. So I enjoy it.
I want to talk about all of that and the fallout of it and everything, but the reason we have you on today actually is you're about to you are making headlines again. This time you have announced just within the last 24 hours your run for Congress. With one of the major agenda items is to defund the U.S. bishops destroying the southern border. Tell us all about it. Where are you? What congressional district is it? Who's your opponent? All that stuff. Just go into all the politics of it for us.
Yeah, sure. And, I'm not a politician, and I don't intend to be one. We're going to be even though people say that's what you're going to be, but that's not my approach.
I was just going to say, if you win a congressional seat, aren't you a politician?
Yeah, I'm not taking that approach at all. Yeah. I reject that title. But we'll be in the district. We're in the 1st district in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. So I'll be running for that seat. It's currently held by incumbent Brian Fitzpatrick. He's approaching his 4th term. So the 1st district includes the 3rd largest county in the state of Pennsylvania, plus a little sliver of Philadelphia and another piece of another county. So it's a big county, a lot of voters. People would say the area is very purple.
So who is Fitzpatrick, Democrat or Republican? Excuse me.
He's a Republican. He runs on a pro-life ticket. I've known his family for years. His brother Mike was his predecessor. He was they're a Catholic family, very devoted Catholics. Mike was a stand-up congressman. I knew him. I would visit him. I'd lobby him. His dad I know. I don't know Brian. I did meet Brian at the State of the Union this year. Unfortunately, Brian, a lot like Bob Casey Sr. and Bob Casey Jr., they're the complete opposites when it comes to their voting record. And sadly, Brian is kind of riding the coattails of his brother and has done that for a while. But he does not vote pro-life. He recently supported the funding of abortion in the military. That did pass in the House last week, I think. So, this is his voting record, and it's just indicative of more to come. So I've been one of his constituents for years. I voted for him for years because I had no other option. But there will be another option this year.
Is it some of the challenge? I'm sure people you've assembled around you, your team, have said, man, is it hard to A, overcome an incumbent, and B, overcome an incumbent with a recognized name. That's always tough.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, look, we had a 98% conviction rate when the feds knocked on my door and indicted me. And so 2% chance of winning that indictment. And we did. So I'm not too concerned about the odds. Someone's got to unseat the incumbent, and it happens, and it's time. It's the 4th term. We know who he is. There's no confusion there. The good thing about my story and, of course, my name with the national spotlight is there's really been never a candidate that could match his name. If mine can match, if not surpass it in recognition. We know that what happened to me and my wife and 7 children, that it galvanized not only my area, but a whole nation in a lot of ways. So we feel like, in light of the story, in light of what has happened, that'll be very galvanizing in our district. And so far, so good. In the last 24, 36 hours, it's been very positive. We got a good team. We're building that team. And, we'll continue to put up a good fight. The Lord has called us to this moment. I didn't want to run for Congress. People have been encouraging me since even before the acquittal to consider it. Mm-hmm. I eventually could not refuse it, thankfully for the influence of Congressman Jim Jordan, Chip Roy, Scott Perry, and Mike Johnson. I saw value in the integrity that was in these men. I continued to pray about it, and then went to St. Pio for a novena for a clear sign, my wife and I, to run. And so we know that God is calling us to run, and perhaps for such a time as this, as old Uncle Mordecai would say to Esther, we have been called.
You've got a great You've got a great series of ads you can run. I'm running, so what happened to me doesn't happen to you. That's just, I mean, that's easy. And feel free. You don't even have to attribute. Just go ahead and take that.
For sure.
There must be, there is that, was it that picture, or there's an image of all of that happening that circulated around. I mean, my goodness, that's a campaign ad. You don't even have to think about it.
Yeah, everybody's using it. Even all the candidates are using our family stories, so that's fine. More power to them. And you know what? All the better reason. What a great story, right? The guy that gets raided goes to Washington, right? Joins the team, basically. Scott Perry said to me, the Republic's falling apart, and so. If God's given us this opportunity, who are we to turn ourselves away from that? And we want to bring that integrity to D.C. and bring those principles there, our Catholic faith, our ministry, if you will, to D.C. and let that inform our conscience. And, sadly, when conscience is aborted, truth is distorted. And so many of our Catholic politicians, so-called professed Catholic politicians, our president included, just have no clue what it means to be Catholic. So we're going to bring that awareness to Capitol Hill, and we're not going to be afraid of who we are.
Have you had any contact with, either in the run-up to or after the announcement, with Brian Fitzpatrick and said, hey, just letting you know?
Yeah, no, the only time I've seen and met Brian, other than him leaving me a voicemail, which was just a pre-recorded voicemail because I'm in his district, was at the State of the Union. That was the only time I've ever met him. I think he apologized a little bit to me. He was a little insecure around me because he felt like he let me down. But think of that narrative. He's a former FBI agent, okay? He worked with the guys that they basically terrorized my children and my wife. And so I think he was a little embarrassed, and I think he felt bad. But he never came out to support us. So that's not why we're running, to retaliate against him. We're running to, like you said, what happened to me, we don't want to happen to any other American citizen. Sure.
Obviously, you have to have, to run for Congress and all of the stress and anxiety and workload and all that adds to somebody's life. Your wife and family and friends all have to be majorly supportive of that and have bought in and everything else. I'm presuming that's the case here.
Yeah, we wouldn't do it if the family was all in. If my wife was against it, of course, I couldn't do it. But she doesn't want to defy God, nor do I. So, we're answerable to God. And look, I remember George Washington and reading about him and his reluctance to be the first president, and yet he felt a duty to do it. And then they want him to do a second term, and he didn't want to do that. And he felt, again, a duty to do it. So, I would be accountable to a certain extent if God's given me this opportunity to influence and bring about a culture of life in the way that I can and through this opportunity, then, I'm going to have to answer for that. So I don't want to be accountable to that. I want to follow God's will, and I believe it's his holy will. Whether we win or not, that's up to him. But we're in it to win it. We're going to do what we can. And, I think for perhaps, again, this is the time.
I am, as you're talking, I'm here imagining a scene in the next Congress where you are presuming that Biden would win again in the presidential race, and Merrick Garland stayed on as the Attorney General. Imagining a situation where you're there on whatever, probably the House Judiciary Committee, and all of a sudden the Merrick Garland case comes up in your committee. Boy,
yeah,
you
the
talk
funding
about
for the FBI, right? Yes.
You talk about weird. That'd be a little awkward for Merrick. Hey, remember me? I'm the congressman. You raided my house, by the way.
That's right. Yeah, when I testified before Congress in May, the Democrats couldn't really say much. They didn't really want to say much because what are they going to say?
Right.
And it's only going to backfire on them if they try to victimize me again. So they can't refute the story. I think everybody knows now that I'm running all across the board. So if we got that type of attention, I think it's going to bode well for us here in this district. And we have a website that we're putting together that it's already up right now, but it'll get more robust. But I'll just put it out, houckforcongress.com, if anyone wants to check it out.
Absolutely. Say it again 3 times because that's how people remember stuff.
Yeah, Houck, HouckForCongress.com is our platform, and contact information, donate button, HouckForCongress.com.
How do you think your Catholic faith informs your now professional political life? Because you do have a professional political life now. You're running for Congress. Sorry. But how does that inform your life, your day-to-day? Look, you've got to be in me. I've run along lots of congressional campaigns my entire career in secular news. It's a grind. You're constantly reviewing this, reviewing that. What's this data? What's this? How do we do? Where do we go? We got to go to this Lions Club and shake hands and kiss babies. And it gets really tiring really fast. So in the midst of all of that, how are you bringing your faith into that?
Sure. Well, for starters, that's why we don't want career politicians, because it is draining, right? And you need to have that energy and get out when you're done. But my faith informs everything I do. It filters into everything I do, not only as a father, as a husband, but as a ministry leader, and now someone who's running for Congress. So it's a sure and perfect guide, our faith. And so as we approach common sense principles with our platform, the faith is going to inform us on all the issues of the immigration, life, of course. And so, we got to get the life issue right. And everything flows from the life issue. So I know I'm right on the life issue. I've studied it long enough. I know the church's position on it. I can articulate it well. And everything will flow from the dignity of the human person. And I think we can get that right, whether it comes to Ukraine, immigration, all those things, environment. We can get those things right.
Do you have a backer or backers, financial I'm speaking about, who have been very, it's your time. We are getting sort of near the end, or at least the appearance of the near the end of a republic. I see great stock in you, this sort of thing. You don't have to reveal people's names if you don't want to, but sure. Is there... Look, finances aren't everything in a campaign, but they're absolutely necessary. You need to set up offices and send people out on the doors and print up materials and all of that stuff. And while that's not geographically a big space, First Congressional, there's an awful lot of doors to knock on in that, packed in, dense area. It takes a lot of money. Yeah.
Yeah, and God knows the incumbent has it, and so we have to match it. Chip Royce, he's been Scott Perry, Chip Roy. They've been very encouraging to me, and they said raise lots of money and get going quickly. So we had to make a decision by the end of July, and we do have. Look, for 20 years I've been meeting these people that you just alluded to. Mm-hmm. So now, after building relationships with some of them, we're calling in not a favor, we're calling in their support again, support in a different way. So you better believe I'm calling in on that, and we're gonna see. We're only 24 hours into the campaign. It's going to be a grind, and the more people tell me, the more I recognize that God will give me the grace to sustain me in it. But nonetheless, there are people who want that change, and we're running on the slogan, if you will, of restoring faith, family, and freedom. That's kind of the restoration formula. Family, faith, freedom. Faith, family, freedom. I'll get it right. But
you're only 24 hours in. You'll have it nailed down.
Yeah. We're getting this is our 10th interview. But nonetheless, we got these guys, and they want to support us. So hopefully they'll continue to support us.
Is there a how would you say it? When you're going around and talking to various people, constituents, how do you overcome the Republican establishment? I mean, that's what it is. That he's a part of the establishment, which means he's a part of the sort of the political elite crowd. He gets all the stuff there, and that if you start to narrow the gap, and the next question I was going to ask is, do you have any initial polling? But as you start to narrow the gap, presuming he's ahead, you know that Republican establishment money is going to come flowing in because they aren't going to lose one of their own. And we're not even into the general election yet.
That's right.
So when you're talking to people and those conversations are going on, what's your response to that?
Yeah. I have to give that more thought, Michael. As far as the polling, I have no awareness of anything like that being reported as yet. All I can tell you is that in the last 6 months, I've been called to visit in my district GOP groups, Republican clubs, and they're all excited, not only by my story, but they're excited by this opportunity now. So can we galvanize them? Can we generate that support? I think we can. When it comes to the money from the outside, look, they call Brian a rhino, right? I don't know to the degree that the Republican support will be for him. Mm-hmm. I don't know that. I know the Dems will come out for their candidate when we get to the general in mighty and powerful ways. But we got the widow's might here. And I don't have enough head knowledge yet to really give commentary on that. So sorry for that one.
No, it's all right. No, this is all part of the stuff of the political world. But, there's an old expression, you beat an incumbent with an anomaly. And you're an anomaly. You have a headline case that got traction in the news all over the world repeatedly. You've got the story, you've got the articulation, you've got all of that stuff. If I was Brian, I'd be a little nervous. You're not just some dude who doesn't like the idea of property taxes going up or whatever. You're a guy with a story. That story represents kind of a galvanization of everything that's wrong in America right now. And when you can put that into a candidate and he's the living, breathing embodiment of it, that should make him nervous.
Well, I like that. Maybe you should join the campaign. I like that. Or just my daily encouragement.
Yeah, I got a few chops in politics. So, you are. You're the walking embodiment of the victimization of just the normal dude who has a family and loves the country and all that stuff, and the overreach of power. While we're doing this interview, Trump just arrived in Virginia. So people are watching this on Friday, but we're doing the interview on Thursday. Just arrived in Virginia, and we just happened to glance up, and a couple of guys and I out here in the media pit were just talking. We said, look, I mean, if they can do this to the former president of the United States, just a private citizen, and hound him into the ground, they could do it with anybody. They see this. Again, if I'm Brian Fitzgerald and Fitzpatrick, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm not wild about this guy. I'm not wild about running against this man's story. That's the point.
Yeah, and he's a former FBI agent, so he's got to answer for that too. So I wouldn't be happy either if I was him. And frankly, good. I hope he's nervous because it's the fear of God that he should have, not the fear of me, because he's not really honoring his Catholic faith with what he's doing, and he's lacking that integrity. And frankly, like our president and others like him, his soul's in jeopardy. So, look, maybe it's an opportunity for him to repent and move into that place. And if maybe that's the only reason why we're running, so be it. But I think God has mightier plans than that.
Hope so. Let's shift gears for a second to the you win, you beat him, you dispatch the Marxist dude who's going to wrap himself in the flag for 5 seconds, and then as soon as he takes his oath of office, put himself in the hammer and sickle flag. You want to get on a committee and you want to do something about this immigration funding that the bishops are just fattening themselves at the trough of. Tell us about that. You were part of the coalition, so people know. Full disclosure, you were part of our Deposit of Faith coalition, your organization, the King's Men, that held the press conference in D.C. a couple of weeks ago. Why'd you join onto the coalition, and why do you want to cut off that funding?
Yeah, because look, we as lay people and lay Catholic Christians need to hold our bishops' feet to the fire. We need to help them be bishops. We need to help them. That's just coming from my Catholic lens. That's why I was so supportive of what you were doing, because enough's enough. And, they lack courage. The bishops lack courage. And sadly, it's just not the church we live in where they're willing to stand against these things and speak for the church and her wisdom for 2,000 years. So, from a layman's perspective, evangelist, I was supportive of that. Now, as someone who's potentially moving into a role where I can actually influence in a positive way the funding that would get directed to the U.S. bishops, well, I'm going to bring my voice to that because, frankly, I wouldn't normally have that opportunity, and
Right.
and now that I can be on a committee, if that ever comes to be, I will let my faith lead me in that commentary and directions and questioning that needs to be questioned, and I will let that. The Holy Mother Church guide me, and it's like Holy Mother Church is going to basically take these bishops out of their role, right? The words and the wisdom of Holy Mother Church is going to remove them in this capacity in that way. So it's only just going to backfire against them, I think. And if I can be a part of that spear, I'll be the spear point if necessary.
Well said. I'm not sure what, as an outside observer, partially outside observer, I'm not sure which I would relish more. You sitting on a committee with Merrick Garland sitting in front of you, or you sitting on a committee with Catholic Charities sitting in front of you. They're walking and go, oh no, it's him. Oh no.
Well, we may only be in for 2 years, but we'll get as much done as we can.
Well, sure. Well, there's you don't have to be a career politician to run for re-election, but probably after 4, it's probably time to hang it up and do whatever. But who knows? Who knows what the case is? Have you got any support? Publicly or privately, Chip Roy obviously, but has there anybody in sort of the America First camp contacted you? I've got to believe on the politician mind level, they see exactly what I see. He's not running against you, he's running against your story and what it symbolizes.
We don't have any formal endorsements yet in that regard. I'm sure we'll get them. I'm sure we'll probably get President Trump's endorsement. But, like I said, privately, we've had a lot of support from Scott Perry, and he's just been a great source of counsel for us. He's my neighboring district in the Harrisburg, York, Pennsylvania area, and he's a former brigadier general. He's got 2 beautiful children, and he's a Christian. And his wife actually, I think, was raised Catholic. So we had a conversation there about that. But Chip Roy and Jim Jordan, Mike Johnson, these guys I've met, I've known some of them, and they're very encouraging to me. They're just doing it more privately because I don't think they can do anything more than that at present.
No, they're not doing it privately if you just said it.
No,
but that's
true.
Okay.
That's true.
Do you have if you had a chief agenda item that's realistic? I mean, yes, we could all push a button and make the world perfect and all of that, but you're up there with 434 other people. Half of them hate America. They support communism. They hate God. What in those confines would you like to walk out of Congress 2 years or 4 years later and look back on and say, that was my chief goal, and that's what I at least drew attention to if did not, in fact, get passed?
Yeah, well, you hit the nail on the head with that slogan or that campaign ad, which is, look, I don't want what happened to my wife and my 7 children happen to any other American citizen, right? And if that's the only thing we accomplish, where we establish defunding of the FBI or total change of guard there that needs to happen, then I think that's a huge victory for our country. I think God wants more from me than that. And, obviously everyone knows where I stand on the life issue. So we're going to continue to bolster Dobbs and continue to strengthen and encourage, more things to happen on the state level. But because that's where it is right now. That's where the issue is. But, I have to, in my dreams, I think of maybe my greatest accomplishment is getting an audience with Joe Biden and telling him his soul's in jeopardy. I don't know. I mean, to me, that could be the greatest gift to the man, to be able to convict him in some personal way. I don't know. But that's just something I keep marinating in my dreams about. I may not get that opportunity. But look, I have a big heart also as a former educator, athlete myself, for what's going on with this transgender stuff. with the kids in the schools and the girls competing against boys now. Look, that is a big concern of mine. We need legislation to help fix that problem, and that's a huge problem, and one that I guess isn't getting as much attention as it should. It does get some attention, but sure. As a former athlete and educator, those kids, man, they need the support, and those girls in particular. I have 4 girls of my own, and I coach them in sports. I think that's a big issue that I would be very proud to leave Congress knowing that we influence change there.
That's excellent. Do you think there is there's an appetite in your district for that kind of change? Defunding the FBI, defunding the bishops, going really head to head with sort of the cultural monster of the whole transgender thing. Do you think in a purple district those are winning positions? Yeah,
I got to let all the strategists comment on that one, but I got to think it is. I don't know. I don't know for sure. I do know that being authentic, being real, listening to people, hearing their stories in my district, sharing my story, being willing to just help our seniors, help our veterans, help those in the community who have been asking for it, who are dying under this administration, physically with the inflation and all these things. They can't take care of themselves. I think if I'm that article, that genuine article who sincerely wants to talk about these issues, debate these issues, I think our district, which is predominantly pro-life, it still has a majority, a slim majority, an R5, I think they would call it, in its margins. But, I think we can. And a lot of people like to think that even though our district does show up as kind of purple, that it's more pro-life than we realize. It's more red than we realize. So I'm anxious to find that out.
Do you think that you're willing to, other way around, would Brian welcome a debate with you? And if he would, right now he's going to say no. Once he accepts, by the way, that he knows you're on his heels. How do you differentiate yourself from him? He's clearly not going to say that he's in favor of the DOJ SWAT teams kicking down people's doors and what happened to you is justified. He's not going to say that. I'm pretty sure he doesn't even believe that. So why should we vote for you as opposed to him? His argument's going to be, I've been there, I've got experience, blah, 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 blah. Is your sole differentiation point the pro-life issue, or is there something further?
Well, look, he was wrong on the Equality Act. He was wrong. He's wrong on Second Amendment rights. He's got a 2% rating for the NRA. So we're different on a lot of levels. He's got a lot of votes that I can use to differentiate myself and things that I would not vote for. Right. Obviously, he's heavily involved. You don't know this, but he's heavily involved with the committee with Ukraine and all that. And so, I'm going to take probably a little different approach than he would with that. And, I support the Ukrainian people, of course. But, I want to know where these funds are going. And we got to figure that out. So he's all about that funding, and that's what he votes for. So we better figure out before we send money, are we taking care of our people first? Are we taking care of the American people? And then how much do we know where these funds are being allotted to? We don't know that right now. And so I think we're going to have a lot of departure there for he and I in a debate if he ever accepts. And I hope he does accept a debate.
Is there any indication, aside from just a great big omnibus, appropriations bill or something, that he's voted specifically with regard to funding the NGOs with the southern border stuff, of which Catholic Charities is one of the major NGOs?
I have to dig into that. I don't know, but I'm sure it's there. I will dig into that, and I'll find out, and maybe you can have me on for a follow-up interview.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I've got to imagine that when the USCCB, which is essentially the bishop's political lobbying arm, hears this interview, they're going to be, oh no, you got to be kidding me, really? We don't want to go to him sitting on some committee where we're trying to push an appropriations bill where we get to come back the second time around and get funding. So you are positioned to become something of the establishment, both in the church and outside of the church, to become a pretty big target enemy for them. You represent loads of things that they despise, and they will come out against you directly or indirectly. That's going to come at you like a tidal wave if you start gaining traction. What do you do for that psychologically and spiritually? Because it gets nasty, and you know that.
Yeah, and
they kicked down your door. You weren't even running for Congress.
Yeah, yeah. How much more can happen? But I know it can be worse emotionally, and through the way they'll come after you, with the accusations that are false, and just leverage and manipulate and coerce things that are not true. So look, we got to beef up our prayer life. My wife and I have to be praying more. Our children praying more, and we got to be communicating better as a family, and just staying close together, and insulating ourselves. Exposing ourselves to the Eucharist, more communions, more confessions. As I do these things, I don't want to ever disparage anybody. I'm not about calumny. I'm not about mudslinging. I'm about the truth. And like I said, when the conscience is aborted, which it appears it has been with Congressman Brian Fitzpatrick, that truth is distorted. So we're going to keep putting forward the truth, and the fact checkers can look at it and tell us whether or not we're being honest there. But I think the prayer life, the morning prayer, the evening prayer, the night prayer, St. Michael, my patrons, my heavenly patrons, and of course all the people that love me, that are praying for me, and our wonderful faithful nuns that are praying before the Eucharist. We have the Pink Sisters in Philadelphia here. Yeah. They have perpetual adoration before our Lord. So you better believe I'm going to be enrolled there for this campaign.
Excellent. Anything else you want to add? Is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't?
Shoot, man, I don't even know the questions that I should be asked. I'm just receiving, and my committee's like, you fell for that trap. I'm like, well, look, man, I'm a football player. I played football. I'm a reactor, right? We react to situations, and so we'll take it as it comes. We'll be honest, and we'll just answer truthfully as best we can. And again, the faith as our sure and perfect guide there will guide us. And Michael, I just support you, and I thank you for your staunch, strident efforts, and just you've been railroaded so much in your career, and maligned. I appreciate the counsel, and I just admire you for staying the course and always giving us the truth. And I hope that you continue in your mission and help me in this journey as well. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it very much. We'll be arm in arm, brother. And you obviously have my number. If something comes up, you got a question or something in that whole world, you just. What Father Bing Crosby used to say, dial O for O'Malley. Why don't you just text and we'll hop on the horn.
I like that. Anomaly beats an incumbent. So that's like right in my heart right now. So I love that.
That's the only thing that beats an incumbent is an anomaly, and you got it. So right. We'll stay in touch on this. We'll keep following up, and we'll see how things are going. Hopefully, Congressman Mark Houck from the 1st Congressional in Pennsylvania, potential congressman, I guess we can say right now. Best of luck with all of that. We'll be in touch, and we'll have you on soon.
Thanks again, Michael.
All righty. God bless. Thank you very much, Mark.